Good evening. Welcome to Chasing the Facts. I'm your host, Sam Chase, and with us this evening is a candidate for the Select Board and actually for re-election to the Select Board, George Dixon.
Good evening.
And George's been around a long time, and so George, I think you know the drill. What we usually do is to ask our guests to give just a very, very, very brief biographical sketch. In your case, probably 3/4 of the town knows you anyway, so we'll just, whatever you want to say, go right ahead.
Well, I'm running again. I think it's going to be a very, very tough year. A lot of things on our plate, and I love the town. I love the people in our community. I grew up here. I raised my family here, and I enjoy nothing more than serving our town. The best thing about being a member of the board, now the Select Board, is helping people, whether through formal governmental procedures or just listening to somebody's problems as you meet them on the street. And if the more you can get, it's very rewarding when you're able to help somebody, get through something that they were having difficulty with. And they're very grateful for it. I mean, people in this town are just fantastic. So.
But
again,
you have a history. I mean, you've been in town for a long time, and you have a history of serving on boards and the sort of charitable type stuff that you've done. I know that you were very involved with the Paul Center and things like that. So
I served 17 years on the Paul Center board. We raised a lot of money for them, and it was a wonderful cause, a great cause. I mean, and the people you meet there, and and I tell you the truth, you think you have it, sometimes a little difficult. Then you go up to, you meet the parents, and wow, they are real troopers. I mean, they deserve so much credit for, and they love it. So they don't look for credit. I mean, but you know what I'm saying? They give their whole life to doing the right thing, and it's a beautiful thing to observe and to be part of. And I wish it would reopen when this.
Oh, I'm sure it
thing
will.
is all done, and maybe we could even bring it to another level. You know what I mean? But just another great asset for the town. And a lot of people donated money. A lot of companies would come up and do all kinds of service work and things like that. It just shows you how deep this community really is in volunteering to help those that need it.
Well, that's very well said. Now, before I don't mean to cut you off, but before we get into it further, a couple things. First of all, it has been pointed out to me that, especially with political candidates, people like to see who they may vote for. So, as far as the mask protocol is concerned, I've been vaccinated. George has been vaccinated. We are socially distanced at about 8.5 feet here in the studio, and there's nobody else in the studio. So while George is giving an answer, I think it's good if he felt comfortable in removing his mask. They did this last night at the Democratic Town Committee debate, and I think people received that very well. So, George, if that's the way you want to go, that's perfectly fine, and I just want people to understand that we're not taking any chances here by doing that. Okay. So that's one thing. The second thing is, this is sort of in the way of a public service announcement. The Secretary of the Commonwealth, Bill Galvin, sent out a short mailer today. I guess it was received. And he's saying that the state law has been recently changed so that people can vote in our town election on April 6th by mail. And no excuse need be given. In other words, you don't have to go through the absentee ballot process.
Right.
Okay? You can still vote at the polling place on April 6th if that's what you want to do. However, if you do want to vote by mail, you go to the Secretary's of State's website, which is at www.mailmyballotma.com. www.mailmyballotma.com to apply for the ballot. Okay, you can do that. I understand you can also apply directly with the town clerk. You can go to the town website and also do that. That's my understanding. I hope that's right. So anyway, that's a little public service announcement on voting. So now we get the housekeeping out of the way.
Well, we voted, if you excuse me
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
interrupting, but we did vote at the selectmen's meeting, our last one, that I think Tricia made it. I think this Saturday we can vote from like 8 to 12 or 8 to 1. And then the following week, and this is at the office, at the clerk's office. And then
Oh, now you're talking about the in-person voting?
in-person
Yes,
voting.
right.
Okay. And then the next 5 days, weekdays.
Okay. So, yeah, it's like like we did in the past with the early voting
Yes,
people. Yeah.
right.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. Very good.
Okay.
So, George, the question we all want to know, you've had 4 terms on the Board of Selectmen. That's a total of 12 years. So anybody would certainly say, gee, he certainly earned his retirement if he wants it. But now you've chosen to run again for a 5th term, so maybe you can tell us really why you are seeking a 5th term at this time.
Well, I think there's a lot of major things that have to be handled. Not that, you know, I'm not the only person that can handle it, but I mean, I have experience and I enjoy working with this stuff. Sewer capacity is one major concern. We have some issues with some water, especially in North Chelmsford, where you know I'm a resident, and with this PFAS stuff, and nobody really knows what's going on with it, and it hasn't reached a level yet of being, but it keeps increasing. You know, it hasn't reached a level of real danger, but where it's coming from is only 50 yards away from the wells of all the aquifer
Right.
in North Chelmsford, all its drinking water. And the North Chelmsford District services the high school, the Harrington School, and the Parker School, as well as the senior center. So, and the 2,500 water takers. So, a lot of people at stake. Plus, you know, obviously, it would have a big effect
Right.
on property values, et cetera, if things.
So that's so in your view, that's a very large issue.
I believe
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, and one thing I've recently really been focusing on is trying to get one representative, trying as best we can to get one representative to represent the town of Chelmsford, so that we can. I mean, we're always on the short end of tax revenues.
Just to remind the listeners, and probably most know, but maybe a few don't, Chelmsford is in a unique situation in the state. As far as I know, one town, we have four representatives in the State House of Representatives. So we've got 4 people representing the
9
town of
precincts.
Chelmsford. Right, and each one has a precinct or 2 to represent, and it is a minority population within their districts. So we've got Tammy Gouveia, who is primarily Concord and Acton and Carlisle. We've got, she does precincts 1 and 9. We've got Jimmy Arciero, who is primarily Westford and some of Littleton. And we've got Tom Golden, who is primarily Lowell. And we've got new rep Vanna Howard, who has, I think,
8 out of 9 are in Lowell.
yeah, she's got 1 precinct in Chelmsford.
East
So
Chelmsford.
that's the situation. So go ahead, George, continue.
So, I mean, I know people have tried and tried. I think we have to put a plan together. We have to get together, maybe even with some of the business people in town, or even the manager and a group of people. And you know, we have to go in town and get somebody to represent us in town. Somebody with some.
Somebody who can be dedicated to Chelmsford.
And somebody that can go in and get it done. You know, somebody that, like maybe even get a lobbyist, hire a lobbyist, even if we have to, because somebody who has worked, like for example, the fellow from Haverhill who used to be chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. He's now got one of the biggest lobbyist companies in the Boston area, and so we get him to, we give him a little bit of money to represent us, to start to get the ball rolling, and give him an incentive to make it happen. maybe the best he can do is get us down to where we have 2 representatives. But anything is better than what we have. You know, no disrespect to any of the people now. It's just the way it's set up, and that was over, you know, a unique problem 15, 20 years ago, and we're still paying the price for it. But it's all the kids are paying the price in school. We don't get the Chapter 70 money we should be getting. You know, we don't get the Chapter 90 money we should be getting. So I mean, we're a big disadvantage, and I'd like to see us being on a level playing field, because our students obviously are performing with as well as any schools around, and the town is basically hanging in there very well, you know, based on the lesser amount of money we're getting from the state.
I think we have largely it's a pro-education town. I think people understand that, but
Well,
you're absolutely right. You know, you bring up a point of Westford. Chapter 70 formula was put together back in 1993, and the demographics were different.
Yes.
Now the situation has changed. So we have a situation where the community of Westford, where people themselves are richer per capita than they are in Chelmsford. The average per capita income is higher, and their property values are higher, and yet they get somewhere around $6 million a year more in aid.
They
Yeah.
get 6, and Billerica gets 8, or they
Right.
get 8. It was supposed to be a temporary thing, because when they were going through their building boom up there,
Right.
the town gave them a temporary increase in their Chapter 70 money so that they could help with their building fund.
Right. Right.
But the temporary became permanent, and no one's going to take it away from them. And obviously, the rep isn't from Westford. No disrespect to him, but he's not going to take any money away and give it to Chelmsford.
Right.
Because that's where he's getting elected every year.
That's right.
And so we have to make up our mind that we're going to go after it. We may not make it, but I don't like to approach something with a negative attitude. I think we have to go in with a very positive attitude. We got to give it some time, but we got to go in there and work hard.
Well, you know what? I think that's a good message, and I think people may be encouraged to hear that, because this, as you said, this has been an issue really since the early 2000s. And out of the gate, you know, I think past select boards have tried to address this. I know when I was on the board, we tried to address it, but it seems to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been there now for 12 years, but that's sort of been de-emphasized. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of initiatives. So now you've come to the place now where you really feel that this is something that really needs to be aggressively
Absolutely.
pursued. Okay, all right.
Absolutely. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm sick of, you know, us not being able to get enough money for this, enough money for that, because, you know, we don't have anybody going for us. Nobody going in there. You know, I mean, to me, it's sad. It's very sad. So, but I think everybody's done a good job with what we have. I mean, our school system is as strong as any of them, and you know, that's the driving force. I mean, they're our best asset,
Right.
number one, but the driving force for real estate values obviously is the strength of our school system. So, you know, without being able to maintain that level of, you know, expertise or what have you, obviously then, I mean, if the student rate performance decreased a little bit, obviously the values, the real estate values decrease.
Now, people come here, young families tend to locate in communities where they feel that the public school system is strong.
It's always been.
Yeah,
as far
it's
as I-
always been
you
that
know.
way. So, you know, you talked about, again, we're still talking kind of, you know, why you want to seek another term, and it makes perfect sense. So you've got the state rep, and you mentioned the other night in the debate, you talked a little bit about water district issues and sewer capacity issues. So do you want to expound on that a little bit?
Well, unfortunately, right now, and it's not totally our fault. I mean, we were aware that I think it's basically Lowell's problem, but it becomes our problem
In terms
because
of
we
the
go
sewer?
through Lowell as far as the
Yeah.
discharge, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully, and I know that the manager is working with with the local Congress lady,
Laurie Trahan.
Laura Trahan, and there's a good possibility that this new administration will be giving out quite a lot of funding for like river cleanup and things like that, which is the big problem, is why Lowell has been, had trouble, and they've been shut down by the EPA, or they've been reduced. So we can't get any additional. So that's one option. So the two other options, one is if somebody comes in to try to do a major project in town, for example, the next major project in town will probably be the West Campus.
Right.
Okay? So they'll probably, and I think there'll be somewhere around 300 to 350 units because of the price of the land, if nothing else. Okay? And so they'll have to put their own sewage treatment plant in there. So
that potential hasn't been calculated into the,
well, I think they're in whoever's looking at it or whoever has looked at it, and that was, I believe, one of the detriments of.
okay, all right. So they would have to do an on-site treatment
So
plant.
you're talking probably
Yeah.
a couple $1 million,
Yep.
and but then again, you got to maintain it, and then the aesthetics, And I'm not sure how the neighbors feel about that either. It's,
I can guess how they might feel.
well, you know what I mean? So it just creates, it's just
Yeah.
another problem that we shouldn't have to be dealing with.
Right, exactly.
Unfortunately, we are. So, what happens, I mean, things don't always go the way you want it. So we got something we got to deal with, we'll deal with it. Hopefully, I mean, because it's a very hot piece of property. I mean, I think the people that bought it they paid a little bit of money there, and then they had to do a little bit more work than they probably intended. So, they're into it. And I know the neighbors are very active over there, trying to get the right type of development in there, which would be good for the town,
Yep.
and good for the neighborhood, and good for the people living there. So, that's
The site's been really a detriment for a long period
a
of time.
long time.
Yeah.
I mean, we had that big fire a couple of years
it was
ago.
very bad.
Thank goodness that was just, one building, but that was going forever,
So anyway, to just kind of wrap it up a little bit, so there appear to be a number of ongoing issues in town that need continuing work effort to get them resolved. So, the fact that you've been on the board for 12 years, you've got the history, you've got the knowledge and so forth. So, continuing in office would represent some sort of continuity on addressing, the ongoing issues. Is that a fair statement?
We are very fair.
Yeah.
But every time there's another issue comes up, it's fairly new, and you're learning more and
Well,
more.
that's true.
I mean, because
But you build on a knowledge base, though.
Oh, yeah.
Not everything is brand new.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been a liaison. I grew up in
Right.
North Chelmsford, as I said. I live I live almost on the aquifer, and just the other day there was a drum of
So now we're talking about the
the closed
water-
DPW
right,
over
okay,
there.
right.
Okay. And that's where they want to take when they build a new firehouse that they're building.
Right.
And while they're building, they want to take the fire engine, I believe, and put it down in this garage. And I think they're going to get a little. There'll be a little drawback from that. Right now there's an LSP in there, doing a study. I think Weston and Sampson is doing some work in there. And but the other day there was like a 30-gallon drum of oil discovered.
buried.
Buried, right. About 50, 60 feet from the building. And then later in the day, they found one buried out in the back. It was gasoline. I was told it was gasoline. I wasn't there. I was there earlier in the day because I got a call. I got a call from the manager's office that, he keeps us abreast of. So I went over, took a look, and and he knows that I'm the liaison and
Right.
with the the people that.
Well, it certainly isn't good to be finding oil and gasoline buried under the ground when you're near the aquifer. That's
No,
not a
no,
good thing.
No, but what originally started was that this PFAS, which is becoming prevalent throughout the state in water. Now, supposedly they stopped manufacturing 8 years ago.
Now, that's the foam agent that
It's the
the
one that, yeah,
firefighters
it's
use?
found in a lot of, yes, a lot of, it causes the foam, when they pull up to a fire and they can't put out, they have to smother it.
Right.
That's what causes the foam, and they put it in the water, and now they're allowed so many parts per million, a trillion, whatever. That changes, they're crazy numbers, but the last 3 times I believe that they've measured it, they have monitoring wells over there now, and they're putting in like additional 10. So I mean, people are working on it. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's something that's going to be resolved overnight. But again, I'm not a specialist in this. It's something. Again, it's a learning process for me.
Very few people are.
But it's something that has to be addressed and has to be. We got to be 100% sure that there's no problem there before, what I mean, before we start, letting it go. Which it's only maybe. It just crosses the street, and you're right in.
Water is a vital resource.
Right next to 4 wells. Right now, I mean, they're doing a good job.
And the monitoring is that hasn't stopped. I mean, they're still doing all
absolutely,
of it. Okay,
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
good.
So.
But anyway, so yeah, those are pretty important issues.
Extremely so.
Right.
I mean, if you don't have water's the new gold.
That's it. Ask the people in South Texas how they feel about their water. Yeah, right. We tend to take it for granted around here, but you're right. I mean, without it, we're all dead.
Not so much anymore, because the Senate district, I believe, is fine. It isn't just North Chelmsford. I think the Senate, as a matter of fact, I think they just got a grant, a $200,000 grant or
I
something.
believe that's true. Yeah.
To do a study on what they have. They have a much larger aquifers, or they have more different aquifers, and
I think they've got more.
They have more personnel.
They got more
and whatever.
horsepower to deal with it. Right.
Exactly. So they've started it, and I think we're relying on a lot of their information, because we don't know exactly where it's all coming from. It's got to be coming from someplace, but we don't know, and until we find out, I really think that things should be just left the way they are.
But you've been an advocate for the people in Chelmsford, and not to get sectional or anything, because I know people like to divide. I don't like to do that, but you are a resident of North Chelmsford.
Yeah.
And I think the folks up there have relied on you for a number of years to be an advocate for issues that impact the town, but more directly, like this water issue, because it's the North Chelmsford Water District, they directly impact the residents of North Chelmsford. So you'd say that you've been a fairly effective voice for the folks up in North Chelmsford?
In a lot of areas, most areas, I think I have. I'm sure there were other times when maybe I wasn't able to, you can't fix all the problems, but I mean, you can try awful hard.
But you listen to people.
That's, I think, maybe my best asset is I'm approachable, I'm transparent, and
those are all qualities that we don't see very often in politicians at any level.
And I care. I mean, I care. That North Chelmsford is like, I mean, I remember sitting as a little kid and listening to my grandfather tell stories, of course. Of course, in the old days, right? North Chelmsford, the Chelmsford Center, the West, there was a little bit of rivalry there.
I get it. I grew up in a town, we had Concord and West Concord, and it was exactly the same thing. So I know.
But I mean, I don't have any problems with anybody in the whole town. I've never had that problem. When I got to school, I mean, I went, I never had any problems. I never saw any fighting or any.
Well, you were very active in your high school. You were a letter guy. You played multiple sports, right? So you.
Yeah, and that gave me an opportunity. I played, 4 sports in high school.
Sure.
So it gave me an opportunity to mix with people from all over town, which I had started that even way back in Little League and youth basketball and things like that. And you just live with them, and you get them. They becomes your. Most of them are my best friends today. And when I go to a Little League game today, you know, and sometimes they ask us to give a speech because they'll have a state tournament come in or something. This was my dad saying. He said, "You guys just take a look to your left and your right. Those will be your best friends in 50 years." Well, times have changed a little bit where people are more transient today, but in the old days it was like that, and it's still true. I mean, my best friends today is still people that I went to high school with. You know, even though we're getting older, and some of us are, you know. But,
That's you know, I'm kind of envious of you. I mean, because to have been born in the town, grow up in the town, go through the schools, and you're still here, and a lot of the folks in your same situation are still in town. And that actually says something from the town, because
Yes, absolutely.
I'll be perfectly blunt with you. I grew up in the town of Concord. There is no way in the world that I could afford to live there today.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of income. But we've been very fortunate in Chelmsford where, I mean, there's been some creep there, but the town is still relatively affordable for the folks
Oh, yeah,
who could stay here.
Yes.
All right, so, I mean, that's, I'm sure that's something that's on your mind, and you'd like to try to help keep that situation
There's a lot of
intact.
people, yeah, and that's why, you know, there were other things that happened. People couldn't afford to continue to
Right.
keep their homes because of taxes, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera. So, but, you know, and then, you know, I mean, kids in high school, we were very lucky when I was in high school. You mentioned sports. I mean, a lot of the kids of your team, I have to say it because you just mentioned Concord. When I was a junior, we lost once in basketball, 20,
Yep.
I think 27-1, and we got beat in Concord
I
on a
remember-
Friday night by 1 point.
I remember,
And,
I was at the game, okay?
And that was the only time. That was the only time we lost.
I was at the
but we
game.
did have some very, very good players, good athletes, and but the people. I think when we went to the Garden one year, for the final game, we had 28 busloads of people.
I don't doubt it. Well, I'm going to stop you now because we're almost at the end of the show, and I want to give you an opportunity to look at the camera, as Dennis Reddy used to say, look at the camera and ask for the vote, okay? So
Well,
go ahead, George.
Again, I mean, it's obvious that how much I really do care about this town. I've enjoyed being on the board, select board. I enjoy helping people. People call me every day, and I love it. And there's nothing more gratifying than if I can help somebody solve a problem, no matter how small it is. Whether and that doesn't mean I'm not the only person that can solve a problem, but I'm approachable. So I pick up the phone, I answer it, I listen, and I go out and I look. Right now we have a problem with trucks, and we're trying to get those things resolved, and we're trying to work with it. It's very difficult because a lot of legal issues too. That are against us. Not anything we've done wrong. It's just that they're entitled, and they're business people. But there's a lot of truck traffic in North Chelmsford that needs to be changed. The police do a great job patrolling it. It's nothing to do with that. It's just that they're entitled because unless we provide additional access to them, these are the quarries where they get the aggregate and stuff to make, you know, the hot top and the cement and things like that. So there's people coming, buying the aggregate and taking it out. So there's truck traffic all day long now, from now till the fall.
So that's an example of how you.
So we try. I was
Right.
up at a lady's house yesterday. She called my house twice, and I said, "I'll be right up." I was up there. I said, "Ma'am, you know, I can't promise you anything. All I can promise you is we're gonna work at it. There's gonna be no more stories. We're just gonna do what we can do to help you. And even if we have to go to the other side, go to the other team, and ask them, listen, what can you do to help us? And we want to provide another access.
Yep.
Well, we did almost do it one time. Is that, and they're willing to contribute because they don't want anybody bothering
And that's
their
what people want. So just let me ask you in the last few seconds, how do people get in touch with you? Do you have a website if they want to contribute to your campaign?
I think it's a campaign is to re-elect George Dixon
Okay.
to select board of 2021. You can call me at my house, 978-251-4611. All my cell numbers 978-954-1002. You can call me anytime for anything I can help with. And if they would like to help out, and then obviously if they'd like to vote, I'd appreciate one of the two votes.
There you go.
And I'm asking.